Now, this virus scare, like I said, it's changed our politics so much, and nowhere more than in Victoria. The slide here to a police state, I've got to tell you, is really frightening. On Monday, my column and on this show warned about the worst move yet by the Andrews government, something I have not seen in any other democracy in this virus crisis. Maybe I've seen it in China, but not in a democracy. The government trying to ram through emergency powers that let it appoint anyone it likes, and I mean anyone, as sort of special agents with the power to detain and lock up other citizens. They can lock you up even if you haven't broken the law. They just need to suspect that you might break the quarantine laws. Just suspect it and bang, you're gone indefinitely. Now, this bill, shockingly, has already been passed by Victoria's lower house. Shame on those politicians. But since I wrote about this, others have come out to say this is shocking. We've seen a letter from 18 top QCs and former judges. We've seen now the Victorian Bar come out, the Australian Bar Association, legal groups on the left, even Julian Burnside of Liberty Victoria. Joining me are Rita Panny, Sky News host, and Ace Herald Sun columnist, and Daniel Wild, Director of Research at the Institute of Public Affairs. Rita, look, it's unbelievable that something as authoritarian as this could be passed by the lower house of a Victorian Parliament. How do you explain it?
I'm not surprised by it passing the lower house. Who within Labor is going to stand up to Dan Andrews? They wouldn't have much of a future within the party or the government. So that did not surprise me. I think any policy he puts up, any proposal he puts up, you can just write off that the lower house will approve it. The upper house is the question. They only need 3 of the crossbenchers to get this over the line, and I have very little confidence that those crossbenchers will develop a backbone and stand up. Most of them are making all the right noises, but as we saw last time with the extension of the emergency orders, they caved, or they were offered a little something.
Will this work the same way? This is the last one they said, I want 12 months, Andrews, I want 12 months of the extraordinary emergency powers. Terrible, terrible, we'll give you 6. I mean, really?
Fine,
so
yes.
I suspect this is just an ambit claim. They'll give you something that looks like this. But you don't need it. I mean, you know, Daniel, how do you explain how this has happened when infections today were down to just 15 cases? Why would we need it now?
The reason, Andrew, is largely political. That Daniel Andrews simply can't afford a third wave or a spike in infections that will just completely end his political future. So he's doing absolutely everything possible to make sure that there isn't one single infection that occurs. But let me just add to what you and Rita have been discussing about why the upper house must not pass this law as currently drafted. We know the ways in which these laws could be used. For example, the laws could be used to empower a union official, for example, to indefinitely detain a small business owner, for example, who may just so happen to be in competition with a unionised workforce. Or it could be used to empower a Labor Party staffer or a Labor Party operative to indefinitely detain, for example, a member of the Liberal Party. And indeed, the laws could be used in such a way to confer power on Victorians, not based on their public health expertise or any other expertise, but on the colour of their skin. Indeed, that is almost exactly what the Victorian Attorney-General suggested when she said that one of the intentions of the laws was to confer power on so-called leaders of multicultural communities and multicultural groups. What that means in practice, Andrew, is that these laws will create, for the first time in Australia's history, a separate class of citizens who will be empowered with extra rights compared to their fellow citizens on the base of their ethnic origin and of their racial background.
I'm an ethnic minority. Do we have some sort of an ethnic election where we elect these community leaders?
Who are they?
Because I've never ever seen that, and I would suggest that a great many of the so-called community leaders...
Big men, you know, with some clout, and then you give them this power to arrest people they don't like? I don't
unelected,
think so.
unaccountable.
Daniel, what you said, people say, oh, that's just a remote possibility. But where in this law is these things saying, well, it can't happen if this and this and this? There's no protection. You've got to trust them. I don't trust them. What we're seeing now, don't trust them at all. Now, Rita, you picked up a really interesting poll that goes against an earlier poll that we saw this week, I think, from Newspoll. in essential media. And the question is, how would you rate your state government's response to the COVID-19 outbreak? And I've just signalled out 2 columns from 3 months ago to now. You see in every state, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, West Australia, huge support for what the governments have done and increasing up on 3 months ago, except one exception. There's Victoria. 75% 3 months ago for what the government was doing, 47% now. What do you make of this?
And it's been at that level for a few weeks now in Victoria, so it's not like a rogue poll. I think for the last 3 weeks it's been around that level. I'm not surprised. Frankly, I'm surprised that there's that many people who still think this absolute calamity in Victoria can be positive. But it does go against the news poll, which had a 62% approval for the way Andrews has handled this crisis. So it is interesting. But with that particular news poll, even in Victoria, left-wing Victoria, people were but a high approval rating for Scott Morrison than Dan Andrews in handling this crisis. So that was interesting to note in the news poll. And I think we really don't see the full catastrophe now because everything is cushioned with JobKeeper, JobSeeker.
People think this is a crisis. What crisis? You know, I mean, a lot of people do think that, but I mean, the point is, a lot of people who used to earn a little money working before, now with JobKeeper and JobSave, they're getting more.
Yeah, there are people. It seems insane when the nation has been plunged into record levels of debt, but there are people who are better off now than before the pandemic hit. We know that from the statistics. I think you have to really look at what the situation is once that welfare is removed.
That's true. I've run out of time, Daniel, but quickly, just in the 10 seconds I've got left, what do you make of this polling?
Andrew, what I make of it is the Victorians have largely had enough of the lockdowns, and that Daniel Andrews is not this invincible political figure that his apologists in the media make him out to be. Even when his approval was high, it was always vulnerable because Victoria is very divided, and we know that small business owners, the self-employed, regional Victorians and those who have lost their job because of his lockdown measures have always had a lower support for Daniel Andrews and the lockdown measures as compared with, say, the public service and the bureaucrats who have always been much more favourable.
Well, there's a lot of them now, mate. There's a lot of them on the payroll under this government. But anyway, Daniel Andrews, Rita Penny, thank you both so much for your time.
Dan Andrews?
Did I say Daniel Andrews?
Daniel
Wild. Oh, Daniel. It's that air of authority you've got, Daniel. Sorry, Daniel Wild. Did I say Daniel Andrews?
I'm not sure how to take it, Andrew.
Good on you, mate. Oh, all right. See you later, guys.